All right, it is 7:02 and you are live.
Okay. Okay, welcome everybody. It's February 16th, 2021, and this is the meeting of the City of Oneonta Common Council. It is hereby called to order, and I will call the roll. Councilmember Murphy.
Here.
Councilmember Davies.
Here.
Councilmember Risberger.
Here.
Councilmember Lepari Shu.
Here.
Councilmember Carson.
Here.
Councilmember Harrington.
Here.
Councilmember Rafter.
Here.
Councilmember Drenick.
Here.
Everybody is here. Thank you. Okay, tonight we have a public hearing for the purpose of discussion regarding community development needs. I'm going to let Judy give a little further explanation on that.
Okay, thank you. Every year, the city submits applications in for CDBG, which stands for Community Development Block Grant Programs. They could include funding for economic development, housing, planning, public infrastructure, and other types of funding. So we're holding the public hearing to take comments from the public regarding any questions they may have or information they'd like to share or needs that they have for those types of programs. So far this year, we're planning to put in a micro enterprise grant, and we'll be talking about another application later in this meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Judy. With that, Carrie, do we have anybody in the waiting room?
Nobody in the waiting room, and our office received no correspondence.
Okay. With that, I will close the public hearing. Okay, I'm going to the agenda I have in front of me has a little different order than usual, so I'm going to jump right before I get to the board and commission reports. I want to first ask for a moment of silence in memory of former Mayor Albert S. Nader. Thank you very much. A couple of words just about Sam. You know, Sam was truly a visionary. Sam fought for an airport. He fought for bringing baseball to Oneonta at a time when many people thought it was something that was impossible to do and made very little sense. But Sam never let the naysayers stop him. Sam created the Oneonta Housing Authority because he understood and saw the growing need there would be for affordable housing, both for seniors, households. He was very involved in the construction of I-88, making sure that it adequately served to provide flood protection for the city as a result of its construction, as well as was very involved in the placement of the exits and the entrances so that they served all of the wards of the city as well as possible. And, you know, he was mayor during the time of urban renewal, certainly a time that was pivotal and not everybody agreed upon. And with an eye to the future, he guided it in a way that he felt would allow us to remove the buildings that were in such need of repair that we were best off by removing them, but while saving the most important core of our historical structures and the core of our downtown in doing so. But in addition to that, as a person, you know, I was fortunate enough to know Sam as a very humble, warm, caring, generous person. He greatly believed in community, and he greatly believed in service. And he was very proud to have lived his entire life in the 6th Ward of Oneonta. It was a place he saw for where people came from all over the world. And regardless of where they came from or what their religion was or what their background was, they were welcome. They came for the jobs in the railroad, and they were personally all always welcome in Sam Nader's home. And Sam had a unique talent, which I wish I had, for saying a lot in very few words. And a couple of my favorites are, Sam once was quoted as saying, "Politics is not a dirty word. Politics is the way we come together to get things done in this country." Something worth remembering. And one of my favorites is when John Nader decided he wanted to run for mayor. He went to his father and he said, "Dad, I'm thinking of running for mayor." And Sam said, "John, there are only 5 people in the world who know how much work that job is, and you're not one of them." So I've certainly come to appreciate that myself. So Sam Nader truly loved Oneonta. He truly loved the people of Oneonta, and he worked very hard, and he loved working very hard to make it a better place for all. And we are very fortunate to have had him for 101 years, and he will be very much missed. With that, let's go on to the agenda. And the first thing is the board and commission reports. Board of Public Service, Councilmember Drennick.
The Board of Public Service met on February 4th, introduced a new board member, Pam Grimm. Old business, 1012 Forest Avenue, a smoke detector fire alarm certifications fee appeal was tabled again, 2nd month in a row, so the owner could attend. Hopefully he'll be able to make it next month. New business, 34 Center Street, a lot of snow and ice removal this particular meeting, and I suspect the next couple. Snow and ice removal fee appeal. The gentleman takes care of his 91-year-old grandmother-in-law's house, his father-in-law's house, his other grandparents-in-law's house. He forgot to finish his walk. In his defense, he says, "It's totally my fault for not understanding that snow removal was part of the marriage contract when joining my new family." But, so that was denied. Anyway, 65 Center Street, snow and ice removal fee appeal. This gentleman hired a contractor to shovel the snow outside the house, and the contractor shoveled the snow outside a house about half a block away. So that was also denied, but the contractor is probably going to be out a couple of dollars. 419 Main Street, snow and ice removal fee appeal. The gentleman, who a lot of people here know, I'm not going to mention his name, but awfully nice guy. He's incurred spinal damage and couldn't find help to do his walk. He did his best, looking for assistance. The appeal was granted because of those mitigating circumstances, and I will note that the chair this month, just as the chair did last month, says, "Don't worry about it, I'm going to take care of his sidewalk." So this winter should be hopefully short, because the chair's taking on a responsibility for a lot of sidewalk clearing. Just saying. Updates, 8 3rd Street. This is the one that had the, if you remember, this is the one that had the garbage bags on the deck and the day-old food and feces, no smoke detectors, and 9 residents plus a baby, and a room framed up in the basement, and a dirt floor and a cot and a TV and all that. It was ordered vacated and repaired. And the good news is that it's been repaired, has not been vacated. It's still retaining its unsafe designation, but everything seems to be resolved. The landlord would still like to be able to get into the property and currently can't. Next month, it'll be on the agenda, and I'll have an update for you on that. And lastly, 50 East Street. This is the one, this is old business again. This is the one that had the tenant, we talked about it last month, in one apartment who was jacking the electric from the smoke detector from the apartment above. The property owner, the landlord, was locked out. The order for the premises being vacated and that particular apartment in the house declared unsafe. But 30 days has come and gone. There's no change. So tickets are being written for non-compliance on the vacate order, and we'll see where that goes. So we'll report back to you next month on that. And that was the extent of the meeting.
Questions? Okay, thank you, Mark. Environmental Board, Councilmember Davies.
Thanks, Mayor. The Environmental Board met February 10th, and with 4 new members, it was largely an organizational meeting. A lot of discussion on what the plans for 2021 would be, what some of the different tasks that they were going to focus on. They were using the Oneonta 2030 plan, a plan that had been adopted by council a few years back as kind of a guide to begin to address some of the areas within that plan that have not yet been addressed. So there was a lot of discussion on those particular actions. There was no full agreement. I think they're going to be working to agree to those actions and move forward in the next meeting. However, of note, and I was pleased about this, one of the new members, Dave Ainsworth, he has stepped forward and will be taking over the urban forest responsibilities from Dave Hutchinson. So that was a real big lift because Dave's been involved in really making sure we got trees in the ground in the fall and looking for those sites. And Dave Ainsworth has met with Hutch, and he's going to be taking over that mantle and working closely with Greg and to be able to identify places to put those trees and keep adding to our urban forest. So that was a real nice development. And that's all I have to report.
Thank you, Mark. Anybody have questions? Okay. I think that completes our board and commission reports. Let's go to the committee reports. Legislative Committee, Councilmember Rafter.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The Legislative Committee met on February 8th and had 3 things on the agenda. One is appearing, I believe it's motion 6 regarding an increase in fines for leaving cars on the sidewalk during, on the street, parked on the street during snow emergencies. And we'll be voting on that or considering that tonight. The second issue had to do with snow removal in front of, in fire hydrants in front of houses. It was brought up that that is not required in the code. And as far as I know, it's been a practice. I believe, I thought it was required, but the idea was to put it into the code. Discussion around that came to a hope that there could be a system of volunteering for people who were unable to do that. There would be a system of volunteering for elderly or people who have different sorts of problems to get the hydrants shoveled out. And I assume too, hoping that people would continue to do that, who just have been doing it as a tradition. The last item had to do with beekeeping and further consideration of an ordinance, and that is being continued in order to get what's being continued is considering and redrafting an ordinance that we could bring in front of the council for the council's consideration, but it's not there yet. So that'll be getting developed and we'll take it from there. There's a lot of support for it. So that's it.
Thank you, John. Any questions? Okay, Finance, Human Resources. Councilmember Carson.
Thank you, Mayor. We met on February 8th, and we vetted 5 items. We spent time discussing one of the motions before you, the code enforcement fees. I think we moved a little away from the original proposal, which was $125 for first hour on scene, and then it would be $125 an hour after that. And where we moved away from council member Harrington brought up a good idea of instead of say 65 minutes into the job, that would cost the homeowner $250, that we could bill out in 30-minute increments. And code enforcement agreed to that, Stephen Early, and that's the motion that's before you tonight. We moved on to the CDBG, which Judy just explained to you. And then we spent some time with our acting police chief, Chris Witzenberg, and he explained some of the challenges to the committee on recruitment and the need for getting up to full staff for our Oneonta Police Department, and the committee as a whole, and I'm sure the rest of the council as a whole, wanted to convey to the acting police chief that we're 100% behind him and willing to work with him and his staff to get back to full staff in his police department. So that was it. I think we were done in 57 minutes. Rather quick meeting.
Thank you, Len. Any questions? Okay. Okay, we're moving right along. Let's go to the City Health Officer report. Dr. Jorgensen.
Hi, everybody. And I told Mark Davies I'd try to have some good news, so we'll see. Worldwide, the numbers are coming down. You can see on the top graph, which represents the number of cases, that the number of new cases per day has been steadily declining since mid-January. But sadly, we now have over 108 million confirmed cases in the world and over 2.4 million deaths. In the United States, you can also see the curve coming down. This is in the last week, a 21.5% decline in number of cases. Total number of cases, 27 million here in the United States, representing almost a quarter of the worldwide cases. You can see here deaths are declining, or perhaps beginning to decline, less so than cases, which is pretty much what is anticipated in that severe illness, as well as deaths tend to lag behind the number of cases reported. But hopefully we're also seeing a decline here. We are now at over 485,000 deaths in the United States. Here in New York State, similarly, we're seeing a decline in cases with now over 1.5 million reported. Again, you're seeing, though, 6,000 a day, which is much less than we'd been at when we were almost twice that toward the peak, which again occurred in sort of early to mid-January. And this graphic just sort of shows you again how the severe illness that being reflected in the hospitalization and deaths tends to follow the decline in cases. So they're both slightly coming down as our case numbers come down. Another way to look at it is percent positivity and number of cases per 100,000. So statewide, as of, I think this is today, the statewide positivity rate is 3.7%, and our new cases per 100,000 are down to 40.79%. You can see scrolling down here in the Mohawk Valley, we're now down to 2% with 25.29 new cases per 100,000, and this is a 7-day average. When I reported to you 2 weeks ago, we were at a 4.4% positivity and a 48 per 100,000 new cases. So a good steady decline there. And this graphic, again, this shows you the new cases per 100,000 7-day average for the Mohawk Valley region. And you can see it's been declining nicely. Another way to look at our region has been to look at Shenango and Delaware counties, who continue to report new cases as well as new deaths. In Shenango, as of today, as reported in the Daily Star, there were 75 active cases. In Delaware County, 129 active cases. Here in Otsego County today, we have 93 active cases, which is less than we have had, but still significant. 9 patients hospitalized, which represents a significant decline. In my conversations with Fox Hospital yesterday, the numbers of people there in both the nursing home and hospital with COVID have started to decline markedly, which is very reassuring. No new deaths reported today, but if you look at the number of total deaths this year at 29, that is 18 more than I reported 2 weeks ago. So I think that's significant. And you can see also that the 29 is quite a bit more than all that was reported in 2020. You can see that the county is not reporting COVID-related cases for this year. I did look at their respective websites, and since students returned January 4th to Hartwick, there have been 41 cases with 13 active cases among students. For SUNY, 27 cases among students since they returned on the 11th of January. 8 of those have been in the last 2 weeks. They currently have 4 active cases, 3 of which are off campus, that meaning people in isolation. So 27 SUNY, 41 Hartwick, 68 total students since the start of the semester, for those of you who'd asked for that last time. And here are just some graphics showing the active cases in the county coming down, as well as the daily case counts. What else? Wastewater. They hadn't updated the statewide dashboard, so I didn't add it, but these were some graphs that Greg created. And our most recent test from the 8th was below the level of quantification, which is reassuring. But I thought this graphic was interesting in that you can see there was sort of a spike which preceded the large increases we had in cases in January. So we're continuing to monitor the wastewater. I talked a little bit about at our task force meeting about the variants, since questions about those have come up. This is from the provider webinar last Thursday, so it's not as up to date as it could be, but again, we know that the UK variant is the most common that's been observed now in the United States, including 61 cases in New York State that well may be more now. It is felt to be more transmissible, and more studies are starting to show that it may lead to increased severity of illness as well as increased death, and may make it slightly, by neutralization capacity, that means someone who's been infected previously with another strain could become infected again. We don't feel that there's a significant impact with the current vaccines, meaning that they should be effective for this specific strain, and that's because they've been studied in the laboratory. The South African variant thus far has not been detected in New York, though has been detected in the United States. I'm going to step away for a minute because my dog is really barking. I'll be right back. I'm so sorry about that. Okay, so South African variant. This is kind of interesting in that we don't know a lot about it yet, but we don't know if it causes more severe disease, but like the other is felt to be more transmissible. And the AstraZeneca vaccine, which they had planned to begin rolling out last week in Africa was found to be significantly less effective. So good news is that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is reasonably effective. So they're going to be beginning to administer that in South Africa. And it's just a wait and see game for what we see here in the United States. Final variant, Brazil variant, least is known about this, but it's something that we're just keeping our eyes on. And I can answer any questions about that later if you wish. This is just to remind me to tell you how we are still somewhat frustrated by the lack of testing in the community. Bassett has partnered with the state to provide these free clinics for asymptomatic people. Next one is this Saturday at 125 Main Street, and then there are a couple coming up in Cooperstown. To schedule those, you call these numbers for the specific clinics where they're being administered. I don't know. They may be full already. And again, I think this is something, but clearly does not meet all the testing needs we have in the community. Similarly, vaccines. So take a deep breath because that is also a huge issue in terms of supply and demand, as we all know. 2 weeks ago, I reported on some pharmacies that were anticipating getting vaccines, and that may have been premature in that they're really dependent on how much the state and some of the federal government decides to give them, and we've had very limited availability in our local pharmacies. All I can say is the best way for your constituents, for people in this community to access these pharmacy-based vaccines, which are specifically for those over 65, is to go to each individual pharmacy website. And I know that that can be complicated and timely and can create, I think, barriers for many of the people that it's meant to serve, those being our elderly folks. As the supply increases in the pharmacies and more vaccines are available, I do think that there are people in the community, including the Office of the Aging, that is going to be working on helping to get people to their appointments. Otherwise, we're left with the hospital systems who did do some community vaccinations, but have been more recently charged with limiting their vaccines to the remaining 1A workers and people that are in congregate living facilities. And the county health department, which again at one point was offering community vaccines to some of the 1B and over 65 population, but now has been directed more recently to do a very limited subset of the 1B population, those being a lot of our teachers and essential workers. Here's just some numbers. Over 55 total doses administered in the United States. This is the dashboard for New York State, which was the same as it was yesterday. So I'm not sure it's super current, but here in the Mohawk Valley, we have administered over 76,000 doses. And this piece of data I found very encouraging from the state website. If you look down into the Mohawk Valley in Otsego County, 80% of our hospital workers have been vaccinated, which is the highest of any county in the Mohawk Valley and also higher than the state average of 75%. As you probably all know, as of yesterday, eligibility has increased to include many of those people with comorbidities that we know put them at higher risk for severe disease and death. And so while this is a good thing, it now opens up the people eligible in the state to close to 10 million. And with only 300,000 vaccines coming to us per week, you can see it does represent the same supply and demand issues. I think it only makes that more difficult. So We are being reassured by the federal government that more vaccines are forthcoming, and we'll hope that that is the case. Johnson & Johnson did apply to the FDA for emergency use authorization on February 4th. So we are hopeful that by the end of the month, that will continue going through the approval process, and that may be an option. That vaccine uses a slightly different platform, so that it is only one dose, and it is does not have the same refrigeration needs. I think that may be it for vaccines. Other things in the news, the CDC did come out with guidance earlier in the week that around mask use, and describing how perhaps a double mask, or at least a more layered mask and a more tight fit might be effective. And this is all on their website, and I think is good guidance. The other thing the CDC said this week is that those people who have been fully vaccinated within 3 months who are asymptomatic need not quarantine if they are a close contact. Other good news is that Pfizer is currently studying use of their vaccine in adolescents between ages 12 and 15, and they will begin a study in Oxford, England on children over 6. So hoping that maybe by the end of the year, vaccine may be available for our children. And I do think that's it. And I will take any questions. Dave?
Yes, thanks, Diane. You said Pfizer is starting their studies for kids ages 12 to 15. Did you mean up to 17? Because I think right now they're approved from 17 and above.
They're currently approved 16 and above. What I saw, and I can't cite you the source, was that they have an ongoing study specifically for adolescents between 12 and 15 years of age.
Okay.
Thank you, Diane. Just to add to what Diane said, the frustration abounds on the availability of COVID testing or vaccinations here in Otsego County. We are, at least I complain about this loudly on a regular basis. We did get a little assistance from Bassett to provide a little additional testing, but it's not enough. We will continue to work on that. Vaccination, it's hard for everybody everywhere. It seems to be even harder in Otsego County, and I cannot get an explanation as to why that is the case, but I am hopeful that that will change in the very near future. In addition to that, SUNY Oneonta has expressed a willingness to host a state-operated vaccination site on their campus. SUNY Central, the chancellor, has supported that. The Mohawk Valley Region Control Room has supported that. The State Department of Health makes the final decision on that. They will not even look at that until there is adequate vaccine for them to feel comfortable expanding the number of state sites that they have now. So it is out there as a potential site. It is recognized that there is not sufficient access to vaccines in this area. So it would be a wonderful thing, and I appreciate that SUNY Oneonta and that SUNY Central and the Regional Control Room are all supportive of it. But no guarantee it'll happen, but at least it's something that we continue to hope for. Speaking of the colleges, I just want to say that both of our colleges have been doing an excellent job this spring semester. The numbers that Diane just showed you is, their positivity rates are lower than the community positivity rates. The number of cases are very small. The students are really responding with a sense of community, the message that they're hearing. Lieutenant Witzenberger has reported there's been very few incidents of inappropriate gatherings. Chief Fila of University Police Department is doing patrols with OPD on the weekends, and they are reporting the same. Our bus drivers are reporting that they have never had students that have been as polite, as courteous, as well-behaved, as appreciative of the rides that they have now. So the messaging that is going out, all of us with the same message, both of our colleges, SUNY and Hartwick, are really doing an excellent job this spring. And we're appreciative of that. And, we'll all work together to keep it going. Diane and I met with the SUNY COVID response team this morning, and they updated us on their efforts. And I spoke with President Drugovich at Hartwick College last week. So both are going well. That's the good news. Okay, I've lost my computer screen here, so give me a second. Okay,
I can
think
add
we're-
something. Oh.
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I also wanted to, Gary had, at the meeting we were at this morning, they commented that the video Gary had gone up to campus and made for the students had been distributed to I think not only the students, but the parents of the students, and it was the most popular link that was clicked on and very well received. So if maybe Carrie, can you forward us that somehow?
I have it, I can
Certainly work
forward
on
it.
that.
Or yes,
I can forward a link.
I think I would love to see it. So, and yeah,
Well,
I think,
It's
yeah,
it's not all that good, but
they loved it.
As they say, I have a face made for radio. Okay, the COVID task force. Who's going to give the report on that?
I'll give that report, Gary. Thank you. We met on Friday this past week. We continue to work closely with Dr. Georgeson to identify when and where eligible city employees can schedule vaccinations. We've had a number of employees vaccinated to date, and we'll be issuing another updated memo tomorrow to staff encouraging those who are eligible to get vaccinated. As a point of information, employees who are experiencing symptoms as a result of vaccination are able to take some time off if needed. We have had 2 recent cases amongst the city staff. Those employees are currently isolating. As Diane mentioned, the recent wastewater data prior to today had been trending down, and today we got another sample result back that I hadn't forwarded to Diane yet. It did indicate a slight increase, but we'll monitor that to see if there is a trend next time. I think as the mayor mentioned, both the police department and transit department had noted that the student behavior had been a lot better so far this semester, including very few, if any, compliance issues downtown, according to the police department. And OPD has issued 1 ticket so far for mask non-compliance. And then overall, PPE is in good supply citywide. There aren't any issues in that respect. And that was pretty much it, unless there are any questions.
Thank you, Greg. All right, I think we're ready to go on to the consent agenda. I'll read through and then I'll remove any items from the agenda that anybody wishes. 1, motion that the council approves the minutes of the regular meeting, which was held on February 2nd, 2021. 2, motion that the council approves the warrants totaling $800,700.03, and that the same be placed on the Director of Finance's desk for payment as presented. 3, motion that the council approves amendments of the 2021 fee schedule for code enforcement fees. as presented, and this would be effective March 1st, 2021. These amendments would modify the fees for lawn mowing and hedge maintenance, sidewalk debris and obstruction removal, sidewalk snow removal, and trash debris junk removal from what is now cost plus 50% to a $125 minimum for the first hour and a $125 hourly fee after the first hour, which would be billable in half-hour increments. 4, motion that the council approves the following. Whereas the city of Oneonta desires to apply for up to $500,000 in financial assistance through the New York State Office of Community Renewals, Community Development Block Grant Technical Assistance Program. And whereas the application proposes funding a conditions survey on the city-owned Armory building. And whereas the city will be responsible for providing a minimum of 5% of the project cost as the local match, not to exceed $3,000. And now, therefore, be it resolved that Gary Herzig, as mayor of the city of Oneonta, is hereby authorized and directed to file an application for funds from the New York State Office of Community Renewal through its CDBG Technical Assistance Program. And upon approval of said request, to enter into and execute a project agreement with the state for financial assistance to the Armory Buildings Condition Survey. Be it further resolved that the council authorizes the mayor to order any necessary budget amendments, budget revisions, and/or transfers, and to take any actions and to provide any additional information which might be required to undertake the proposed grant application, acceptance, or execution. 5, motion that the council approves the 2021 budget transfers, which total $27,200 as presented in the attached reports. 6, motion that the council approves increasing the snow removal parking fine fee from what is currently $30 to $100. This would be effective on February 17th, 2021. 7, motion that the council temporarily appoints. I'm sorry, this is not on the consent agenda. So 6 ends the consent agenda. So I will take any requests to remove any of those items from the consent agenda. I see no hands up. So I will entertain a motion to approve all 6 items on the consent agenda. Councilmember Carson, second by Councilmember Harrington. And I'll call the vote. Councilmember Murphy.
Aye.
Councilmember Davies.
Yes.
Councilmember Risberger.
Yes.
Councilmember Lepari Shu.
Yes.
Councilmember Carson.
Yes.
Councilmember Harrington.
Yes.
Councilmember Rafter.
Yes.
Councilmember Drenick.
Aye.
Okay, the consent agenda is approved unanimously. Thank you. Now I'll go to the individual motions. There are 2 individual motions on the agenda. Then we have a third one on a supplemental agenda. Motion 7, motion that the council temporarily appoints J. Michael Mancini to the position of acting fire chief. This would be effective February 17th, 2021. At an hourly rate of $33.65 for a period not to exceed 6 months. And further authorizes the mayor to execute an agreement with Mr. Mancini capturing the terms of employment subject to review by the city attorney. Do I have a motion to approve? Councilmember Carson, do I have a second? Councilmember Lepari Shu, discussion. Councilmember Harrington.
I got a couple of concerns, but I'm not sure we should be doing it in public. I think it's an executive session thing.
Unless if this pertains to an individual circumstances.
It pertains to the current fire chief.
I'm not sure that it's executive session unless it has to do with his individual performance of his job. I don't know that it needs to be an executive session.
Well, okay. Then I'll bring up my concerns out in public, but I'm not sure that that's the right thing, Mayor. I'm going to wholeheartedly disagree. I think this is an executive session with a couple of things that I discussed with you earlier today.
Is this performance related in terms of?
I would believe so. Of
Okay.
what's going on and what we're expecting the current fire chief to do.
Okay. How does this relate to this motion that's out there?
Because why would we appoint a temporary fire chief if the current fire chief's going to be still showing up on scenes and stuff?
Okay, let me clarify that right now. We had 2 structure fires over the weekend. Pat Pigeon is still the fire chief on leave. The appointment of Michael Mancini as acting chief has not taken effect. Pat Pigeon showed up to oversee those fires, which was the responsible thing for him to do, as he is the only chief on board right now, and provided oversight. Once Michael Mancini takes over as acting chief tomorrow, Pat will no longer be needed to do that and will not.
Okay, so this is going to, from this vote, if Michael gets put in, this vote, he is going to be the chief, the person that everybody on the floor reports to.
That is correct.
Okay. That was my concern. I just didn't know if it was appropriate to bring it out here or not. That's why I was asking.
Okay. Any further discussion? Councilmember Risberger?
Yes, was it discussed with Mr. Mancini the hours that he would be putting in approximately?
Dave, this is Katie. I can answer that question. I'm sorry. I had to turn my video off. I'm having some problems with my internet tonight, so I apologize, but I am here. So yeah, I did speak with Mike about the hours. He's willing to work a full-time schedule, approximately 40 hours to work a normal, full-time administrative workload.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion on this? If there is none, I will call the vote. Councilmember Murphy.
Aye.
Councilmember Risberger. I'm sorry, Councilmember Davies.
Aye.
Councilmember Risberger.
Aye.
Councilmember Lepari Shu.
Aye.
Councilmember Carson.
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington.
Yes.
Councilmember Rafter. I'm reading your lips.
Yes.
Councilmember Dremick.
Aye.
Okay, motion is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. 8, motion that the council temporarily appoint Shane Mattice to the position of acting part-time assistant fire chief, effective February 17, 2021, at an hourly rate of $40 for a period not to exceed 6 months, and further authorizes the mayor to execute an agreement with Mr. Mattice capturing the terms of employment, subject to review by the city attorney. Do I have a motion to approve? Councilmember Carson, second by Councilmember Harrington. Discussion. Councilmember Risberger.
Yeah, at first I was okay with this, and then I just realized I've got some questions because we just did away with this position due to budgetary concerns. So are we talking about a full-time position? How are we justifying the need for this? Because I know I'm going to get asked this by my constituents.
I'll let Katie respond to that.
Sure. So I think, Dave, when it came down to the decision about, the continuing the assistant chief position, it had nothing to do with the importance of the position or the role that was provided by the incumbent in the department. It was strictly an economical decision based on, the money that was available in the budget, given that we were in, unprecedented financial times. So I just want to be really clear that, the decision that was made in the budget had nothing to do with anything operational. It came down to what money was available to the city. So that said, the appointment of Mr. Mattice to this position in a part-time capacity, not to exceed 20 hours a week for an absolute maximum of 6 months. He's already a retiree of the city, which means that he already is on city provided health insurance. So there's no additional benefit cost that would be associated. So it really is a very economical, an economical appointment. So between these two gentlemen, the city stands to spend less than if we fully funded one position or the other. The other thing I should mention is that, I want to be clear that we didn't abolish or eliminate the position of the assistant chief. That's a formal civil service process where you literally do away with the title. The decision of the council was to temporarily defund the position due to economic reasons. So it's not gone. It's just kind of being held in abeyance pending, and budgetary decisions in the economic situation.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councilmember Murphy?
This might be a silly question, but looking at the motions, it looks like the acting assistant chief is making significantly more money than the acting chief. Is there a reason for that?
Sure, I can take that one too, Luke. I mean, and there is a very good reason for it, and it's nothing that I really can get into an open session. But what it really comes down to is that each one of these gentlemen is already a public retiree, and they are each subject to earnings limitations based on that fact. So when I had conversations with the two of them and I talked to them about listen, what's it going to take? What are your proposals? These are the numbers that they jointly arrived at, and quite frankly, Mike Mancini supports Shane receiving a higher rate because he's got 10 additional years of experience in the department. He also had served in a higher ranking role for several years. So while typically it makes my HR heart unhappy to see that, again, this is just the economic realities of what it was going to cost to get each one of these individuals into the job, if that answers the question.
Absolutely. Thanks, Katie.
Any further discussion items? Okay, if not, I'll call the vote. Councilmember Murphy?
Aye.
Councilmember Davies?
Aye.
Councilmember Risberger?
Yes.
Councilmember Lepari Shu?
Aye.
Councilmember Carson? Len, can you hear me?
Aye.
Okay. Councilmember Harrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Rafter?
Yes.
Councilmember Drennick?
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you. I'm now going to switch over to the supplemental agenda. It's going to take me just a second here to find it. Let's see. It was sent out sometime today. Here it is. Okay. This is the reason for this being last minute is that we were notified just in the last 2 days that our Albertus Nader Regional Airport is eligible for COVID stimulus funding of $13,000. We do have to submit an application to receive that. And so thought instead of waiting 2 week, putting it off 2 weeks, we would move forward with it tonight and getting your approval to submit the application. So the motion is, whereas the city of Oneonta has indicated its intent to submit to the FAA an airport coronavirus response grant program application for a grant of federal funds for use at or associated with the Albert S. Nader Regional Airport. And whereas in consideration of the promises, representations, and assurances provided by the city, the FAA will be approving a grant application in the amount of $13,000 to assist airport sponsors address the COVID-19 public health emergency. And whereas the grant is intended to provide funding for costs related to operations, personnel, cleaning, sanitization, janitorial services, combating the spread of pathogens at the airport, and debt service payments, and must only be used for purposes directly related to the same. Therefore, be it resolved that all necessary budget amendments, and transfers for said grant are authorized. And be it further resolved that the mayor is authorized to execute or cause to be executed all necessary applications and agreements on behalf of the city of Oneonta. And be it further resolved that this resolution shall take effect immediately. Do I have a motion to approve? Councilmember Carson, second by Councilmember Davies. Discussion? Okay, I'll call the vote on this. Councilmember Murphy.
Aye.
Councilmember Davies.
Yes.
Councilmember Risberger.
Yes.
Councilmember LaParicio.
Aye.
Councilmember Carson.
Aye.
Councilmember Harrington.
Yes.
Councilmember Rafter.
Yes.
Councilmember Drenick.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll switch back to the main agenda. Okay. Oh, that's the wrong main agenda. There we go. Okay, any additional business or discussion matters from anyone? Councilmember Risberger?
Yes. I understand that at least 4 of us in one of our committees is developing the idea of having a housing commission, but since that may take a little while, I wanted to at least get this discussion started. And we have a number of problem houses in the city, as we all know. 62 Elm Street is in my ward, and it's one of these houses that it's owned by the fraternity that is not allowed in. The house is boarded up. It's possible there's hundreds of owners of the building. Mr. Merzig's very well aware of which house I'm talking about, I'm sure. But this is a house that has a lot of character and potential, and I'm very concerned about what's going to happen with it when it just sits. And it's been brought to my attention recently that there's been a contractor that lives locally that has shown interest in wanting to perhaps buy it, live in it, fix it up, and that would be his home because of the character that's in this house. But trying to get that house sold is very, very difficult. I'm just wondering, what is our path forward? I think we've been waiting for quite a while on this house. Do we have what's the potential of taking it by eminent domain? I know people don't like that, but I think in some cases, eminent domain it's a tool that we can use that will benefit the entire city. Definitely Elm Street, it would benefit. And if we were able to take this house by eminent domain, we could turn it over to the land bank, and they could sell it for us. So what are our options? Mr. Merzig, I'm glad you're here tonight. You're probably wishing you weren't here since I brought this up, but what is our path forward on this building? Because it's been sitting for quite some time. It's been an eyesore for a long time. So where are we with this?
The preliminary question is whether you want to discuss potential litigation in public or whether you want to do that in executive session. I discussed this both with Yearly and with the mayor about how we were going to address this particular property. You should be aware that eminent domain is only available for public projects. So unless you were going to make it into a park or it was necessary because you were putting a new roadway in, eminent domain would not apply. You can't simply go around and say, I'm gonna force you to sell your house to the city because I don't like it. You can't do it. So it's strictly an enforcement issue. If you have somebody who wants to buy it, I can put them in touch with the attorney who represents the corporation that owns it. And he should contact them and talk to him about making an offer to buy it.
If you could do that, that would be great.
Sure. Right now, one of the things that the city is working hard on is making it a money pit for the entity that owns it, and that's happening every day.
Mayor, do we need to go into executive session here? I don't know what I can ask on this property and where we are.
I think it would be advisable.
It also might be a better thing if this is something that you're particularly interested in, that you set up a meeting, either Zoom or otherwise, with myself and Stephen Yearly, and we can talk about where we are right now. I mean, there's a specific plan in place that's being worked on that's operating now.
Okay.
So it might be best to tell you what's happening, then you decide whether or not you want to suggest to the Common Council that they do something else.
Why don't we do that? Because I had a list of other similar properties here that are in other wards, but the eminent domain question you've already answered. So it kind of eliminates all the other properties here. So
we can also, again, I can guarantee you that whatever properties you have on the list, Stephen and I have already talked about. So maybe it's just better for us, the three of us, to get together. And then if there's something universal that you think ought to be done that we're not doing, then we could certainly talk about that. And you could certainly report to the council anything that you think that would be a step in the right direction to do something different than what's happening now.
Okay. Well, if nobody else here objects, I'll hold off on the executive session request, and I'll send you an email and we can set up a Zoom meeting.
I think that might be the most productive use of everybody's time at this point.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else? Councilmember Murphy?
Hi, everyone. I received an email that I was asked to share with the council. I guess actually technically this is a correspondence. Should I wait a moment, Mayor?
Go ahead.
Okay. It's coming from a new member of the community who just recently moved to, I believe, my ward. And a question regarding I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull it up here. Is there a community service project organization that helps spruce up people's property at no charge to the taxpayer or the property owner? If there isn't an organization, can there be one? So essentially asking if there's an organization or what it would take to organize an organization to help with folks in doing simple things around their homes, particularly the exteriors. I guess it's a question for everyone here, because I wasn't sure exactly what was.
Luke, I'm not aware of a formal organization that's been organized to do that. There would be no obstacles, I believe, to an organization doing that, unless David wants to say differently.
I have worked with organizations that not Future for Oneonta Foundation particularly, but an organization like that that has volunteers that work for individuals who have particular needs. As with everything in life, it raises insurance issues and liability issues because someone's on a ladder on somebody's house and they fall down, then the property owner becomes personally liable for any injuries that occur. So very often there's a volunteer waiver and a property owner waiver that can be formulated so they each waive liability from each other, that sort of thing. So it's doable. It's been done before. It just depends on how formal the organization is that's sponsoring it and how willing and how they decide to do it. So it's certainly doable and it's been done before. Just there needs to be a structure for the benefit of everybody.
And it's not something that the city necessarily needs to be involved in or implementing. I mean, if there's a group of people that want to form a formal or informal organization to do such a thing,
God bless.
Go ahead and do so.
But again, we couldn't sponsor it. We couldn't do anything like that or be used as a 501c3 umbrella for it or anything like that.
Thank you both.
Councilmember Drenick.
Yeah, Luke, I just want to say that the State University College had done the Into the Streets program for years, and Job Corps had done their Groundhog Day, where they had put people in a similar sort of a scenario of helping out, raking yards and painting houses and this and that. So there's a precedent for that in terms of, maybe some infrastructure that could be, brought to bear in the formulation of some sort of organization. So just, those two entities, SUNY Oneonta and the Job Corps, have had some experience doing that. So just want to pass that along.
Thanks, Mark.
Any further items from anyone? Okay. If not, I will entertain a motion to go into an executive session to discuss a specific personnel matter. This would be for council members only. Do I have a motion? Councilmember Davies, second by Councilmember Risberger. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
And, okay. Okay, Carrie, if you could do the magic transfer. Okay. We are back in full session. And to my knowledge, there is no additional business. So with that, if there are no objections, we are adjourned.